Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. Welcome to the first day of July 2022. Time for the hurricane outlook and discussion. Good to be back in the office. I was up in New York for a couple of days. I'll explain what I was doing there on Monday. So you're going to want to tune into that. Got a big announcement for you. I already put it on Patreon, just so you know. Our supporters get the breaking news first, and as well they should. They support a lot of what we do financially. So really interesting and cool thing that I got for you coming up on Monday. But first, it's Friday, the first day of July. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get on with it, shall we? First, we have Bonnie out here. Finally, nice graphic here from our Tim Melman. Appreciate it. And we added the finally. Finally, it took a long time. We're not rooting for hurricanes and death and destruction, you know that. But this was weird. It took a long time for it to get going. We tracked it all the way across, and now we've got it. And we'll get to that in just a second. First, a little bit of July climatology for you. Where do we expect stuff to develop over history? And history can be our guide. We look out here. Some Cape Verde deep tropical development in July over the past 100 plus years. But notice the Caribbean Sea down here. This is really important. The Caribbean is almost completely, I mean it is, except for one little one right there. And we got to add one for today. Today counts for July because Bonnie formed right here, right? So other than that, most of the Caribbean, we'll say, is void of any tropical cyclone development in the month of July. The reason why, the Bermuda Azores high is usually pretty strong. A lot of times you can have a big old Tutlow sitting out here. I'll show you that in just a minute. That's relevant to later on in this discussion. But that creates a lot of strong trade wind action coming through here. Sheer, just an unfavorable overall upper level environment, usually in the first part of July. All right, so what do we got going on out there? Well, here is Bonnie, and you can clearly see it's got a good rotation with it, starting to ramp up. It took a long time. Climatology was against it. It ran into the landmass of South America here. It was moving very quickly. But it's interesting, I've seen a few people talking about the fact that it had very good, favorable is the better word. You don't say good, you know what I mean. It had a very favorable environment to work with, but just different things weren't coming together, and climatology is a big part of that. The time of year that we are in, you don't typically see hurricanes developing in the Caribbean in June, and that was the case with what is now Bonnie. And you remember the EPS, the ensemble prediction system from the Euro, was the most aggressive with this, and it was wrong. It took a long time for it to sort of catch on. But nevertheless, putting all that aside, here it is. It'll be impacting, and is impacting, Central America, way down there in Nicaragua and parts of Costa Rica. We can see that on the track map. This is off the HurricaneTrack Insider site, our interactive map. You can zoom in here and see where it is headed. It'll make landfall to the south of Bluefields. Yes, there is some rugged terrain through here, and it is possible that we could get some mudslides, flash flooding, that kind of thing. So, you know, if you're down there or you have interest down there, a lot of people tour in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful area. I've never been there, but I've seen the pictures, and I know how it is from those pictures. But heavy tropical rainfall can be problematic. Now, interestingly enough, Bonnie will cross this relatively narrow landmass called an isthmus. What is that? ISTHUMUS or something like that? I can't remember. Or whatever. It's a geographic term. I can say it. It's called isthmus. I might not be able to spell it. It's going to go into the Pacific, where it will probably remain a tropical storm and then eventually become a hurricane here to the south of Mexico. So what happens when that happens? Does it stay Bonnie? Does it get the Eastern Pacific name that's next, which I think would be Darby? Well, let's take a look. Tomer Berg talking about this today. Cross-basin storms are rare. The last tropical cyclone to cross from the Atlantic to the Pacific was back in 2016, and that was Otto. It's even more rare for the cross-basin tropical cyclones to re-intensify in the Pacific. That was Cesar and Douglas way back in 1996. So here's Otto and what it did back in 2016. almost the exact same area. Go figure. And then in 1996, Douglas crossed over, being Cesar, and then it became Douglas. So what's going to happen with this? I believe that it will become Darby in the Eastern Pacific. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure that I'll hear about it in the comments because it's pretty rare. I don't think about this all the time. Usually I thought when they degenerate below tropical storm strength and then become a depression and cross into the other basin, they get the name from that basin. So, hey, the jury's out. I don't know for sure. I'll admit I don't know everything. It might remain Bonnie, but I'm more confident, I'll say 60-40, that it'll actually be renamed Darby in the Eastern Pacific. But whatever, it hopefully won't affect land directly. And it's an interesting track, too, that Douglas took, Cesar to Douglas in 1996, as what Bonnie and then possibly Darby. And Darby's the next name on the list in the Pacific, by the way, not the next name on the list in the Atlantic. See, it's already too confusing. Let's just move on, because it's not going to be a big impactful event after the rainfall threat and some wind issues in Central America. Don't want to discount that, but what it gets named, that's just what we do as humans to keep up with stuff. All right? Speaking of names, does this deserve a name, and what is it? Well, it's a disturbance off the coast of Savannah and vicinity. Nice mesoscale complex of storms, big old convective complex. But let's zoom in on this, shall we, and just give you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at and whether or not this could develop more. There's a couple of clues here. See how the wind is generally moving across the system overall. A little bit of difluence where the wind is somewhat clockwise and more calm, but it's still the overall net flow of wind is this way. I'm going to try to draw a big old arrow here. And that is pushing the deep thunderstorms away from this little low pressure area that is down here. It's definitely there, little low pressure area. And you know what? Just real quick as I continue through this update, we'll go to the National Hurricane Center homepage and see it's only about 1:28 that I'm cutting this video. So by the time I'm done, right before I sign off, we'll go to nhc.noaa.gov to see if they outlooked this area, because they had not at 8 a.m. this morning during their 8 a.m. tropical weather outlook. But nevertheless, some heavy rain down here. I even saw a coastal marine warning recently from the National Weather Service down there out of Charleston. This is what it looks like on the vorticity signature. We'll use black here to point these out. It's got a nice rounded appearance, so there is some energy there. There's another area of energy that was Invest 95L. Generally, the energy is now over Texas and Louisiana. And there's Bonnie trying to make more of a name for itself. And then there's this other disturbance entering the windwards. We need this energy to get up here to the north and west towards the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It might do it, especially in this northeast part. We'll see in the guidance that I'll show you here before we wrap things up. All right, rainfall-wise, well, here is, let's use white to make this pop better. Here's the leftovers of 95L. There's our system off of Savannah and Charleston and vicinity, and we can zoom in on that. Definitely a well-defined low-level circulation and some deep thunderstorm activity with it offshore. Kind of reminds me, speaking of 2016, of Julia. Remember Julia back in 2016? I do. It formed actually right over Florida, moved up along the coast there, and it was the first time I'd ever set anything up in Charleston, and that would lead to me setting something up for Matthew a few weeks later in Charleston, and it was a pretty big benchmark moment for my project. Story for another day. That's Julia, though, back in 2016. This is similar. It's fairly slow moving. It's not in a hurry to get anywhere, and some of the rain from it is working its way up to the Grand Strand and the Cape Fear region. A lot of people are going to be pouring down here to the beaches this weekend, and it's going to be kind of rainy for the next day or so because it is fairly slow moving. So how fast will it move, and is it going to get out of the pattern without screwing up too many things? And I forgot to put the GFS in here, so let's do it real quick. It's okay, I got some road lag. I got back at like 5:30 in the morning, so I'm tired. Let's go over here to the Western Atlantic. Hey, it's my show. I can correct this on the fly. As long as we do it, that's what counts. So there it is. That's the vorticity. Well, come on, Mark. We got to at least make it so you can see stuff. There's the vorticity of it in the GFS right there. There's old 95L. There's Bonnie. And there's our tropical wave. I mean, come on. That's pretty cool that you can clearly see how it is a wave that just rolls through here. The trades, just a piece of energy. You know, normally the trades are straight through and you got this little wave in there. Perfect textbook example. So what's going to happen? Well, let's see what we do here. Get rid of that, go here, and get rid of me. So the next 24 hours, our system there off of Charleston and vicinity, Savannah, all this orange and yellow that you see in here, that's the vorticity of it. It shreds up, right? It just kind of comes apart. So no, not much chance for persistence that this hangs around and becomes a named storm. But this is tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, still a lot of energy down there, showers and thunderstorms, maybe some gusty winds. So any travel plans, I do have a good friend of mine wanting to fly out of Charleston. Pete, I'll just call you by your first name. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because there could be some heavy rain. This is not going to move quickly. So fingers crossed for you, Pete. I know you got some plans there to get up to Michigan. I'll keep you posted privately, put it that way. Other than that, though, no, it doesn't look like it's going to develop more. It's just going to kind of hang around with that energy, finally moving up to the Cape Fear area, and then it just strings itself out by 36 hours. In the meantime, our tropical wave, look, there's a little bit of energy that does and did move through the islands there. Let's just back it up. You see what I mean? Right through there. Just a little bit. So maybe, just maybe sometime tomorrow, we can get some rain for our friends in the Northeast Caribbean. You're good down here in the windwards, or so I hear. Got plenty of rain for you guys lately, and maybe even too much of it. But the Northeast Caribbean, you really need it. Meanwhile, there goes Bonnie right there, and it might be Darby at this point in the East Pac. Off it goes into the Pacific and could become a hurricane, staying offshore of Mexico generally. Kind of small. It's not a very large system. So we'll watch. We'll see how that evolves over time. All right, real quick, going through a couple of things that I want to show you as we get into the first part of July and the weekend ahead, the big holiday weekend, lasting through Monday with the 4th of July. The Atlantic's still very, very warm overall, and we'll talk about this more Monday, but the heat is concentrated in the deep tropics. The cool subtropics, that's a very positive sign for hurricane development, a negative sign for us that live along the coast. The Gulf of Mexico, by and large, quite a bit above the long-term average, as is most of the Caribbean Sea generally. And then our La Nina is trying to hold on. It's been moderating a little bit. And I'm going to show you a very interesting thing about that in just a moment. Actual sea surface temperatures down here in my neck of the woods, from, again, about the northern Outer Banks, south and west. Water temperatures 80, 81, 82 degrees. I was down at Oak Island last week. What was that, on Monday? This week, last week, whatever. Seems like an eternity ago. I've been traveling so much. And the water is pretty good down there. Felt nice. So water temperatures nice and healthy and warm and getting warmer. It's only the 1st of July. Gulf of Mexico, we talked about this before. At least we've shaved off a lot of those 31 Celsius numbers. That was absurd. Sorry, microphone. And we've got more 30 degrees Celsius popping up. So the isolated areas of absurd warmth diminishing, while the background of the Gulf overall is increasing in terms of the water temperatures there. 30 Celsius becoming more and more common. And, you know, we get a hurricane in the Gulf at any point from here forward, and it's not going to be good. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's always warm enough, and this year, as I showed you, it's even warmer. All right, I was over at Storm 2K perusing what people were talking about. I love these different threads like this one here, the indicators beyond the 16-day time frame. And there was this one right here that caught my eye, especially when you see that little guy right there, right? What do you call that? An emoji, the crazy emoji or whatever you call it. So what was it? Well, this is it. If you expand the tweet from Storm 2K, that was referenced, Andy Hazelton, mentioning that the EPS, the Ensemble Prediction System weeklies, seem to indicate that after a quiet first half of July, late July into early August could feature a relatively favorable Atlantic setup. So here's that old Hove-Molar diagram. Generally speaking, all of this indicates sinking air all across here. You just move this and you say, where is it? It's down here. And then when is it? 1st of July. And then this is moving forward in time, out into the future. It starts to get more and more favorable later on down the road. So at least the first part of July should generally be favorable. But a different version of the Hove-Molar diagram, we can see some of these Kelvin waves that are trying to move through. If you know what you're looking for, you can see them in there. Maybe one here, a little bit of activity here. So sprinkled throughout July, we might see some activity that we just can't see in the global models yet, but these little small windows of opportunity might open. But by and large, July should be quiet. A lot of dust and Saharan air coming across the Atlantic, and some people saying that the hurricane season isn't going to do anything. You know how it goes. And then when we get to mid-August, it like flips on like a light switch. All right. And also, Cody Fields, weather tracker Cody, really interesting tweet that I saw yesterday, that the strongest easterly wind burst, speaking of Hove-Molar diagrams, since April is getting underway along the equatorial Pacific. There is a strong chance that this triggers another upwelling Kelvin wave. It's just a very fancy way of saying strong winds blowing across the equatorial Pacific helps to upwell the water eventually in what is underneath the surface, colder water. So it upwells that colder water, keeping an already record-setting and long-lived La Nina in place, maybe even through the winter months. And here is that Hove-Molar diagram, and it's the same kind of thing. This is a very strong trade wind surge in the modeling. This is showing your anomalous zonal wind flow at about 5,000 feet above the atmosphere. So all that green and blue, the very light color green, very strong trade winds blowing where? Right through these zones here in the equatorial tropical Pacific. Same thing. So that's interesting. And a period of slack trade winds coming eventually in the Atlantic later on in July as well, about mid-month. And that would help to warm the eastern Atlantic. So there's a lot of interesting things to watch as we get into July that I will be keeping an eye on for you. That's my job. All right. Somewhat the CFS tries to react to this, bringing the La Nina back down to stronger La Nina thresholds by October. But this is the time frame right through here that we are most interested in. And yes, we will firmly be within La Nina threshold during the meat of the hurricane season. All right, wanted to show you, not that, that's an email, the email that gets me to this. We have a new store that our good friend CJ put together over at Spring, used to be called Teespring. A lot of the YouTubers use this for official, I need to get a new mouth off the merch store. A lot of YouTubers use this for their official merchandise, and we're doing the same. So today is the official unveiling. I will now and forever put a link to this in the description. All kinds of t-shirts. Hey, if you know other YouTubers and how they use Spring, it is awesome. I've already ordered a couple of things for myself, all the way down to iPhone covers and your different accessories, a coffee mug, to water, what do you call these things? You put your water in it, whatever. Your water bottle. Sorry, you can tell I am definitely road lagged. Anyway, head over to the store and you can check that out. I'll put a link to it. It probably does a better job of just doing that than me trying to describe it. And also, I took the t-shirts off of our old HurricaneTrack store because they're now over at Spring, but we still have our tracking map. I'm shipping one today later to New Hampshire. I've shipped a bunch up to Minnesota. It blows my mind that I'm shipping these well, New Hampshire does go down to the coast, of course, but that's awesome. People ordering these from well away from Florida and elsewhere. Florida is my biggest demographic for ordering these maps. But if you want one, I still got them. They are beautiful, 18 by 24 inches, full color, and you can just go to the link also in the description and grab yourself a paper tracking map. All right? All right, well, let's get back over here and sign out, shall we? We shall. I'm going to try to rest some over the weekend. I will do the morning updates. I do need to rest. It was a long car ride back. We did a lot yesterday. Visited my cousin up in Fort Lee and just, took our time on I-95. And it is what it is. A good business meeting in New York. Again, I'll talk about that publicly on Monday. You're going to like it. It's going to be exciting. And anyway, I do need to rest up over the weekend, though, get my voice back. Too much talking. But anyway, that's it. That's the start to July. It looks like it's going to be kind of quiet. So that's good. We got a lot to do, a lot of prep work ourselves, always to be as ready as can be when it all starts to crank up later in the month and into August. All right? So, but I will be around in the mornings to do morning updates, maybe an afternoon update if needed throughout the weekend. And speaking of the weekend, be safe, please, because there's no reason for me to be here without you. So I need you back alive and well on your side of the screen, whatever that screen may be. All right, I'm Mark Sudduth for Hurricane Track. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.